All right, Ninon, we're ready to get started.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh boy.
All right. Where else would you rather be than a Zoom full of Penn Staters? I'm
You're
Paul Clifford,
absolutely right.
CEO of the Penn State Alumni Association, and I want to welcome everybody into Coffee Hour, the Penn State Alumni Association's Coffee Hour. We host it each week. You can expect to hear the voices of Penn Staters talking about what they are most passionate about. You can expect to feel the pride and the power of the Penn State network. And we are recording this session and we'll be editing it and sharing it in hopes that other Penn Staters find inspirations in the stories that we share here today. And speaking of today, I'm joined by Ninon Nelson. Ninon is, I think you have the record for the longest title so far of
Oh,
anyone to appear on Coffee Hour. She is the executive liaison for the Council of Commonwealth Student Governments. And I'm just proud that I spelled liaison right, because that was a little tricky. But welcome to Coffee Hour, Ninon.
thank you so much for having me. This is so wonderful. Getting a chance to talk about my Commonwealth experience is truly, truly the best end to my Penn State career.
Absolutely. Well, let's start right there.
Mhm.
Tell folks who might not be familiar with CCSG what CCSG is all about.
Mhm. So, as many might know, Penn State has 4 recognized student governments. You have UPUA for students of University Park, you have GPSA for grad students, you have the World Campus SGA for World Campus students, and then you have CCSG. Penn State is unique in its aspect of having 19 Commonwealth campuses, and each campus is unique and wonderful in its own way. And to govern the student governments at those individual campuses, you have CCSG, the umbrella organization in the form of government to sort of make sure that the voices of Commonwealth students, their needs, do not go unheard. University Park is its own mammoth, a beautiful one, but a difficult one to navigate around. So in order to ensure that Commonwealth students feel welcomed whenever they visit up here, students who transfer here have the best experience. That is the whole purpose of our organization.
Awesome. And how did you get involved with CCSG?
Mhm. So I actually started off at Penn State Harrisburg. Woohoo! And it was such a blessed experience to be able to start at the Capital College of Penn State. And CCSG would typically invite all 19 campuses for a conference every month at University Park. During these conferences, we get a chance to meet President Barron, Damon Sims, Madeline Haynes, and all these people at University Park that were able to affect change for the students, on behalf of the students. And when I was a freshman, I had no idea what student government was at Penn State. And I remember my president back then was like, hey, we're short a student and we're looking to get freshmen involved. Would you like to join? And I was so afraid of this University Park campus that I had heard so much about, but quite frankly, had never been to before. I was like, sure, why not? This seems fun. So I got inside the little car, drove the 2 hours from Harrisburg to University Park for a CCSJ conference, my first month in a Penn State, and met some of the loveliest people I ever had the pleasure of meeting. It was also the first time that President Barron came and gave his sports car analogy of Penn State and the speed it goes at. And I thought, wow, I want to be part of an organization like this where I get the chance to help so many. And thus began my journey when I moved to University Park.
And so day one, you're at Penn State Harrisburg. You get involved with CCSG. And then you rise through the ranks. You became president of the Student Government Association at Penn State Harrisburg, ultimately leading you to this position of executive liaison. What does the role of executive liaison entail?
That's a fantastic question. And like you, I think I practiced the spelling of liaison about 100 times the summer before I entered my job. Very confusing time in life, but the role of the liaison, I think, is a unique, fun one. I essentially represent CCSG in every student org at University Park, which can be a little bit of a difficult job just because of the plethora of student organizations present at this campus, and you know better than I do. Essentially, I meet with UPOA, CCSG, and the World Campus Student Government at their typical weekly meetings. I interact with the 3 caucuses, Black Caucus, Latino Caucus, and the APITA Caucus. Not a lot of involvement in athletics just because student government doesn't oversee anything that goes on in the athletics department. Definitely a big fan of sports though. But just making sure that everything that the students at Commonwealth campuses might hope to get into, I try to forge that connection with an already existing organization at University Park or an office at University Park that students at Commonwealth campuses might benefit from. So that's my job, smiling, shaking hands. It's great.
Awesome. This is the Penn State Alumni Association's Coffee Hour. I'm Paul Clifford, CEO of the Alumni Association. I'm joined this morning by Ninon Nelson. She is the Executive Liaison to the Council of Commonwealth Student Government. So let's go all the way back, okay?
Of course.
How did you become a Penn Stater?
Oh, I love that question. So I was born and raised in Abu Dhabi, which is an hour out of Dubai. Dubai is great, but very, very far away from here. When I was in high school, I was one of those typical MUN kids that no one likes MUN kids. But still, I was one of them and I absolutely loved doing it. And my junior year, they had an international conference where they picked a couple students and took them to the headquarters in New York, and we were given the opportunity to tour a couple of colleges in DC, New York, and Pennsylvania. So Penn State was not on the agenda. It was not the list of colleges that we were supposed to visit. And by sheer luck, the person in charge of shepherding these high schoolers from all around the world just happened to be a Penn Stater. And while we were touring UPenn, she kept like creating these like comparison stories, like, oh, at Penn State, like, you know, people are smiling all the time, like there's a creamery, you can get ice cream. And I swear to you, I was so sold on her description of creamery ice cream. I was like, you know what, I think once this is done, I need to go see what is this Penn State and what it's about. So I asked my mom, I was like, you know, we have a week, can we go see University Park? Like, I would love to get a tour. And I can honestly say it was a Lamb's tour that completely sold me. I obviously had Death by Chocolate. I owe my whole life to the creamery, if anyone out there is listening. But I was definitely captured by the spirit and love that students just had for Penn State. Just walking through University Park as a prospective student, people were so welcoming, so ready to share their own stories. You could see a smiling face wherever you went. If you happen to see a person that was crying, you had 10 other Penn Staters around that kid, like trying to make them feel better. Definitely saw the lion run through the hub. My heart was racing, maybe because of all the sugar rush that I was experiencing because of the ice cream. But I think Penn State really earned the title of Happy Valley before I knew it was actually called Happy Valley in my head. And I found myself at Penn State.
So were you aware of Penn State before you went on that trip?
I was actually not. I'm not gonna lie, even if I had, a lot of the times the University of Pennsylvania and the Pennsylvania State University gets confused overseas. And this was definitely one of the topics that I got a chance to talk about because I think Penn State has such a unique message, and the experience that you get on this campus isn't even comparable to any other university that just happens to have the name Pennsylvania in it. I think the "We Are" statement has so much to it, and it's such a Penn State message that I would really, really like for the distinction to become clear wherever wherever you are overseas. But no, I was not aware before.
So was it always your intent though to study in the United States?
Um, I definitely had a couple options for my major. So I am studying international politics. I hope one day to help the world. It sounds as naive as it did when I said it when I was 12 years old, but I definitely looked up the schools with the best political science or international politics programs, and I did have a couple universities in the US that really caught my eye. Definitely touring Penn State like changed it all very quickly. I felt as though a huge part of the decision was obviously how great the School of Liberal Arts was over here, but I was really nervous about moving so far away from my parents, and I felt the most comfortable at Penn State. So not a clear intention to study in the United States, but I came to Penn State and I was like, I can do it. I can do it.
Yeah. What was it about? I mean, that's certainly you're a student leader now who exudes confidence, right? But when you came to Penn State as an international student, jumping in and getting involved right from the very beginning isn't necessarily the typical path that international students take, right? I mean, they sort of kind of test the waters. They make sure that they're grounded in their academics. What was the difference with you?
Mhm. Oh, I think you're very kind in assuming that I exude confidence. Oh God, I'm sweating in my Mickey Mouse pajamas that I still have. But no, that is actually a very valid question.
Yeah.
It is the rhetoric around international students is that they typically tend to flock towards their own, which isn't surprising just given the vast differences just culturally between any country. I think for me, I am a huge people person. I love meeting new people. It wasn't only student government that I joined. I joined Lion Ambassadors. I joined the Penn State MUN Association. And I don't know if that's like still a thing, but I think a huge part of it was also the comfort that I felt at Harrisburg. New student orientation was like the first event where I saw like faculty and staff interact with students. And I think the messaging behind Penn State and the way that can't like every Commonwealth campus and University Park conducts that new student orientation for international students was so perfect because they address questions as simple as what do I do if I need toilet paper? Because you don't think about it, but you're not used to living here. And I think everyone really stepped up wherever you turned. There was a helping hand. There were people who actually said no question is a stupid question. And I think a huge part of my involvement has to do with other people making me feel comfortable, other Penn Staters making me feel comfortable. And I know that seems like an answer where I'm pandering to all the staff and faculty, but they were absolutely wonderful. And I really owe where I am today to how Penn State Harrisburg and University Park made me feel, because when I transferred up here, it was like I was a freshman again, even though I was a junior. And never once did I ever have a bad experience when I asked for help. So definitely goes back to everyone else that I worked with.
That's amazing. You're watching the Penn State Alumni Association's Coffee Hour. This morning, we're visiting with Ninon Nelson. She is the executive liaison to CCSG, among other things. And some of those other things include your involvement on the university's International Student Recruitment Committee. Talk a little bit about the role of that committee, and the role you play on it.
Mm-hmm. That's actually a really nice question, because that committee just got put together and we got hit with the pandemic, which is so awful. But that is a standing committee that was created last semester in order to assess the environment for international students, not only at University Park, but at Commonwealth campuses, specifically to do with recruitment. Some of the things that we did talk about was exactly Like the question that you asked, did you know about Penn State before? And a lot of the students were familiar maybe with the "we are," but not necessarily that was associated with the Pennsylvania State University. So we did talk about messaging, like abroad, how to sort of improve Penn State's standing within the international community. And we did talk about the environment at University Park and whether or not it actually helped or like pulled students, international students back. You're obviously familiar, but international students aren't able to get scholarships, unlike in-state and out-of-state students. And a lot of the times when surveys are sent out to international students, that is one of the biggest, not complaints, but worries that we receive. It really causes a lot of students to think twice about accepting offers to Penn State. And as we know, Penn State is so committed to diversity and inclusion that you don't want an international student saying no just because of that. So the committee was chaired by Dean Lang, who is the College of Liberal Arts, the new dean. He is absolutely wonderful. He gave every student who was on the committee, myself, a representative from UPOA, the grad school, and the International Student Council, a chance to speak, voice our own personal stories with Penn State, talk about whether the environment allows for the success of international students. So a very new committee in the making. Hopefully we get to see 2.0 happen when, fingers crossed, we're back in the fall, but yeah.
Excellent. So let's talk a little bit about the impact that COVID-19 might have on an international student, and whether it's their ability to come in as incoming freshmen or their ability to come back. I know some of our international students actually went home. Their ability to come back to Penn State. What are your thoughts, or what's your perspective on that?
I think the first emotion that just went through my head is just pure sadness for these international students. I think the experience that you get at Penn State is just irreplaceable. And I'm sorry, to think that a student that was so excited to come and see the Nittany Lion and experience all these events at Penn State won't get the opportunity to is just absolutely heartbreaking. Right now, at least from CCSG's perspective, we do have a lot of international students at Commonwealth campuses, not necessarily in the same number or quantity at each campus. Like, it's definitely different, and we know that this pandemic is going to affect recruitment at these Commonwealth campuses differently. We also worry that if numbers decrease at international campuses, Commonwealth campuses, how will that number affect programming for international students that takes place at these campuses? Because obviously you have all these events, celebrations for festivals from around the world, like chefs at housing and food services that are able to cater to the needs of international students. What if the numbers decrease for a year or 2 years? How will that affect programs that have been created solely for these international students? I know it seems like it's at the bottom of the barrel in terms of problems, but it's definitely something, because we do want to maintain that sort of support system, like monetary support system for these Commonwealth campus students, without necessarily taking away from what the campus might need immediately. With regards to recruitment, like you asked, to be completely honest, a lot of students are either thinking about taking some time off, a year off, or just not returning back to Penn State, just because tuition costs are really high. And a lot of the reasoning is that if we do not return to in-person classes in the fall, you might as well, be at home and attend to your classes. And the online class system is actually so fantastic. I've had the best experiences with Penn State professors. Like, Nittany Lions everywhere are just killing the game with classes. But yes, it is sort of a really sad, dire situation for international students everywhere and their futures at Penn State.
Yeah, I will echo your statement about online classes. As you know, I'm a World Campus student that just so happens to live in State College as well, and work at University Park.
Mm-hmm.
But I've actually felt like I've been closer to my faculty members as a graduate student in my online courses than I ever was to undergraduate faculty, and it's because you're forced to communicate so much more with your faculty working online, and it might not be over the phone, and it might not be face-to-face communication,
Mm-hmm.
but it's the back and forth of emails, and yeah, I found that I've actually communicated a lot more with all of my faculty members throughout my master's program.
Absolutely. I just had my last classes for the semester last week, and I think every single one of my professors shed a tear, which
Yeah,
4 years at Penn State never had that happen. But I think struggling through Zoom brought everyone closer together. Trying to
right.
figure out virtual backgrounds brought everyone closer together. Yours is great, by
Absolutely.
the way, but
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to remind people what Hints looks like, and that we'll all be back together very soon.
yes.
Um, so talk about where you are today. Where are you waiting out the stay-at-home order, and just talk about how you might plan to celebrate over the next couple days your accomplishments.
So right now I had to leave State College. It was not an easy goodbye because I didn't get the chance to actually say goodbye. It was amidst a lot of tears, a lot of runny noses, that I left to be at my godparents' house. They are in Michigan. A lot of
Oh,
Michigan
wow.
State people around here feeling very threatened with my Penn State jerseys, but it's definitely a blessing that I had family like sort of close by that I was able to stay with. I do not have the opportunity to fly home yet just because borders are closed in my home country. But again, I think just like you said, classes aren't the best thing in the world. I've definitely complained about assignments, but the fact that we still had like some sort of normalcy to our routine, even though we were spread across the state, across the world, or at State College, there was still that idea that, you had classes and you had your paper, and there was Penn State messaging just constantly on all forms of social media that you felt,
Right.
oh, I'm still here. I'm still experiencing a part of Penn State. And that sentiment is like, I'm definitely carrying it all to Saturday when I graduate. I think like it's definitely going to be weird. I still hope to wear the dress that I wanted to wear for graduation. It's just going to be me, all of us around the fireplace in front of the TV. I will stand up when my name is called, have a little walk around the patio, and then sit back down. But it's a year of new traditions, and I'm more than grateful that it is Penn State that I get to share this new year of traditions with. Wouldn't ask for anything different.
That is wonderful. Well, thank you all for joining in on the Penn State Alumni Association's Coffee Hour. We are with Ninon Nelson this morning, an amazing student leader at Penn State, a member of the class of 2020. So you are a French and international politics major. What are you going to be doing after graduation?
Oh boy. Um, Definitely a lot of naps. But in the long run, I do hope to go to grad school with hopefully a grad school with the School of Foreign Affairs. My very bright and shiny end goal is to hopefully work for the United Nations. It has always been a dream of mine to assist in diplomacy any way that I can. I hope to use the experience of just being from all over the world and just having all of these experiences. I hope to use all of that to maybe make someone smile one day. And I know it sounds like daisies, even though diplomacy might not always be the easiest thing, but anything in the capacity of a foreign attaché or somewhere to make peace, somewhere to bring smiles. but just on behalf of the UN or any global entity would be absolutely fantastic. But that is my plan for the time being. Fingers crossed if it turns out the way I hope it will, or we'll see whatever comes my way and we'll make the best of it.
All right. Well, let's see if we can bring some smiles right now. We're gonna have some fun here, what we call our lightning round. And so I'm just gonna throw some things out there, and you give the first thing that comes to mind.
Amazing.
Okay. Now you're the first international student who's been on Coffee Hour, so some of these the answers might be interesting. So okay, and then the first one: Sheets or Wawa?
Oh God, I'm going to get so much hate for this, but I have to say Sheets, just because we had a Sheets next to our campus. I can feel alumni just like removing me from the list. Like, we can't have her anymore.
Okay, how about your favorite spot on campus, whether it's at University Park or Harrisburg?
I have to say the Arboretum. I think just sitting alone there makes me cry, which makes me sound like a pansy, but in the springtime when flowers are in full bloom, I think it's so surreal, and it is such a nice place to just, get your head clear. I'm sorry, these are really long answers for a lightning round, but Arboretum.
Awesome. How about TikTok or Snapchat?
Oh my God, I have to say TikTok. I am a huge fan of your TikTok. Shout out to whoever's listening. Please follow Paul. Huge Penn State love on TikTok. TikTok is great.
That's funny. You might be like my only follower. So.
Oh my God. Yeah. No, I promise you. People, I think when you did the climb with us before Thon, it was the biggest thing within our orgs. We were like, yes, please look at this man. He's so dedicated. We all can do it.
That's so funny. How about your favorite building on campus?
Oh boy, my favorite building. Okay. I would have to say it's actually the library, which I don't know if it has to be Old Main or the library, but I just feel like a lot of people say Old Main. I would die for Old Main, which sounds weird, but it is a building. But yeah, I can choose. Like the library, I spend the most time there. I love to read, but would also die for Old Main, the bell tower.
There we go. How about your favorite pizza place in State College?
Oh boy. I think my new favorite is Snap Pizza.
Snap Pizza.
It's so quick, so easy. Absolutely fantastic.
Nice. I'm a fan of Snap Pizza as well. My go-to place though is Margaritas.
Ooh, and
it's only because she remembers everybody in their order. I mean, she's amazing, and her pizza's wonderful, right? I mean, the food is
you're right.
The food is great, but that kind of personal attention, I think, is kind of quintessential State College and Penn State. So
yeah. Oh my God. Oh, for sure. We can swap places one day. It'll be great.
Well, but the Snap with the cauliflower crust, that's fantastic.
I can. Just thinking about Snap Pizza like makes me teary-eyed, but yes, Snap Pizza for life.
So Netflix or Hulu?
I would have to say Netflix because they have The Crown on there. I'm a huge fan of monarchy. I don't know if we can say that on here, but everyone's gorgeous on The Crown.
We're open to many forms of government. I'm not going to say all forms of government, but we're open to many forms of government on Coffee Hour here. So, how about Starbucks or Dunkin'?
That's a tough one. On days that I have finals and quizzes, definitely Dunkin'. I feel like they just have a magic recipe in there to make shake me up, but I love Starbucks. Like their holiday drinks, oh God, to die for.
Absolutely. So you mentioned earlier you're a big fan of sports. What's your favorite Penn State sport?
So, fun fact, I think the biggest international moment that I ever had for me was trying to figure out the difference between football and soccer. Just because the first time they were like, oh my God, Penn State football. And then they threw the ball and I was like, you can't do that. It's supposed to be with your feet. Oh God. It was a great experience in Beaver Stadium. Confused out of my mind that they were able to throw the ball. But I'm a huge soccer fan personally, but I think football, like American football, like definitely grew on me. It was such a new game, and I was like, this is so cool. Like everyone's running around. Sometimes I have no idea what's happening. I'm still screaming wildly. But yes, I would have to give it to the whiteout game that made me love football even more.
That's awesome. So you mentioned earlier in the interview that your first trip to the creamery, it was Death by Chocolate. Is that your favorite creamery ice cream flavor?
Oh boy. I would have to say either Death by Chocolate or the Rust Rose one. Even
Okay.
though it's not one of the top favorites, but I don't know. Like if I did not want to be as generic as everyone else with the Death by Chocolate, now don't disrespect, I will still eat a whole like gallon, but
Right.
a lot of respect for Russ Rose and his creamery flavor.
That is awesome. All right. So let's do some word association now. When I say this word, what comes to mind for you?
Okay.
So the Nittany Lion,
Love.
For the Glory,
Penn State.
the class of 2020,
Resilient.
We Are.
A family.
Excellent. Well, Ninon, you have been delightful to have on Coffee Hour today. I want to thank you for joining us. I know that we have some people who are on the Zoom with us, and I'm going to give them the opportunity to ask any questions. And so if you just want to either, let me see here, if you could put in the chat. Actually, I don't think we have a chat on here. If you just want to raise your hand in the participants, so click on participants and raise your hand if you have a question, and then I'll just call on you and we'll unmute. All right, so let's start with Dane Zadnowski.
Hi.
Hey, Ninon, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I want to say congratulations, and I really, really do appreciate your awesome, positive attitude and everything that's going on. And obviously, your love for Penn State you show that very well. I want to shout out to Ccsd as well. I was actually a Southeast Caucus director in 0304.
No way. Oh my God.
Yeah, so I'm so happy that you have that role, the executive liaison. That's an awesome role, and I think you're a perfect person for it. I want to put the bug in the ear too for after graduating, keep the campus alumni societies in mind.
Oh yeah.
Like Harrisburg, keep that connection.
Well,
So yeah, kind of going into that, like in terms of the Alumni Association, do you have any plans to stay involved?
Why not? The biggest and greatest alumni association in the world with lovely people like yourselves, Paul, everyone else on the chat. It would be crazy to say no. But yes, I do plan to stay involved. I think Penn State's one of those milestones in my life that I have achieved that I don't plan on letting go anytime soon. So yes, and thank you. Go Ccsd.
Awesome. Yeah, keep emailing Paul. So
That's great. So let's go to Tracy Baker.
Hi, Ninon. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Congratulations on your achievement. I just wanted to say that. But one of the question that I have, kind of piggybacking on what the last person asked you, is coming. I didn't go to a Commonwealth campus. I actually live like 10 minutes away from the Abington campus, but I didn't go to the any Commonwealth campus. I transferred to Penn State from another university, and I went straight to University Park. So I don't have a Commonwealth experience, but I sit on Alumni Council, and so I'm learning a lot more about Commonwealth students and people with Commonwealth who have attended Commonwealth campuses in a background. When I was a student, you couldn't graduate from any campus except Barron.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of tells you how long ago I am. What's a Penn State, right?
You're just really wise. Look at that.
But being on Alumni Council, I'm wondering, in terms of involvement, because you talked about staying involved, what can we do as the Alumni Association to try and get more involvement from students who graduated from Commonwealth campuses. I know you went to Harrisburg and then transferred to University Park, but there are many people who never, like you said, never set foot on campus, on University Park campus, including the World Campus students. So what do you think the Alumni Association can do to sort of expand the involvement and it not be sort of a University Park centric Alumni Association, which some Commonwealth alumni do feel that way?
No, I think that is such a wonderful question. Thank you so much for that. And like, to your experience, I think it's so holistic of you to think about these Commonwealth campuses despite not going there. So thank you for that. I definitely think a big part of my enthusiasm for the Alumni Association was seeing you guys on campus. I think at the Hints, at every LAMS event, the alumni were always represented, and they were always welcoming, always supportive, and that definitely encouraged so many students who might have been a little bit hesitant or like scared if, you know, they'd be accepted, and that just made it easier for us. And at these Commonwealth campuses, some alumni are very involved on campus, others not so much so. I think like messaging throughout Penn State could be sort of the same if possible. Like the involvement of alumni on campus, because that does not always happen. Having alumni, like encouraging them, like, hey, attend these student events, you know, attend the involvement fair or attend orientation, like have your own booth there, like talk about your alumni association. Some Penn State campuses are just a building. They're still part of Penn State, but that might be an easier way for every student to see the alumni visually, because I think our greatest asset at University Park is that we can put a face to the Alumni Association. We can put multiple faces, sometimes names, and that is very helpful. The alumni definitely try to get involved when it comes to homecoming. Commonwealth Alumni Associations walk the parade, and that's just one way that some of the students get to see their alumni in action, and they're like, oh my God, there's my campus, you know, like, what is this association? I should definitely check it out. And I think more events like that, where the alumni are put in the forefront, you know, they're all Penn Staters, they all have a smile on their faces, nothing can ever go wrong, but just putting a face to these Commonwealth Alumni Associations would, I think, make the greatest change in the world.
That's great. We have a couple more questions. I see Ty Cole with his hand raised. I see Jeff Ballou had his hand raised earlier. So let's go Ty, Jeff, and then Megan. Ty, go ahead.
Hi.
Hi, Ty.
How are you?
I'm swell. How are you?
I'm good. I have 2 questions, okay? First, tell Paul that we were homies when I was at Beaver and you were at Harrisburg.
Paul, we were definitely homies when he was at Beaver and I was at Harrisburg.
He doesn't believe it. He thinks you were too smart for him.
Oh God, no. I was one of the first presidents from Beaver that I met. Introduced me to that whole campus. It's why Beaver's my other favorite Commonwealth campus, even today.
Ty, everything Ty just said was untrue. But go ahead, Ty. What's your second question?
Ninon, what is your favorite CCSG moment or memory?
Oh boy. I think my favorite CCSG memory, it's a very recent one, but we did have the esteemed Madeline Haynes as part of our council weekend after the pandemic. So we invite all of these Commonwealth campuses to University Park, and we have a 2-day council weekend where we talk about student governance and fun stuff like that. But obviously with the pandemic, we had to conduct it over Zoom, and a lot of people thought it wouldn't happen and they were really afraid, and Madeline Haynes was our first speaker, and she ended up giving us a commencement, like a graduation speech, and she personally thanked every single senior that was graduating that she worked with over the past 4 years. And it was sort of right after Penn State said that we were going to do everything online, that weekend was our council weekend. So she was the first administrative face to talk to us and tell us that we were going to be okay. And I think nothing had ever made all of us feel closer, because we were like, this whole situation right now is, there's no precedent, there's no way to know how to act, but that one person came to us and spoke to us at 9 a.m. and told us that it was going to be okay and we were all going to graduate and have all these awesome memories. Definitely my favorite Ccsg memory. Sorry for getting sappy, but
It's okay.
That's
Thank
awesome. Jeff Ballou, how are you today?
I am fine. It's always a privilege to speak with fellow Penn Staters, especially a fellow Commonwealth campus student.
oh my god.
I'm a former McKee sport, now Greater Alabama. That's how old I am. And a former CCSG rep.
That's amazing. Oh my god.
Yes. From my old McKee sport days, I was an alternative rep, and we both always would go up to the meetings or go to other campuses for meetings.
Mhm.
I don't know if you've ever been to Greater Allegheny. If you've never been, I hope you would, once this all gets behind us, visit. It's a lovely little campus.
Love to.
My question is this: what, having experienced your time at Harrisburg and at times elsewhere in the system, what one thing would you change in the Penn State student experience to make it better for Commonwealth campus students? I mean, what's the one thing, what's the legacy you would love to leave behind?
Oh boy. Thank you for that question. I do not think I am worthy, for starters, to leave.
You are.
Oh,
Or else
but,
your peers wouldn't have elected you.
oh man. Thank you for that. But if I could change one thing, I would say I would like for there to be more support for students that switch not only to University Park, but from one Commonwealth campus to another, or from University Park to other Commonwealth campuses. Right now, a lot of that orientation is sort of left up in the air, like a student just transfers, and it's not always for easy reasons. It could be financial hardships, it could be family matters, parents in poor health that they needed to move to a campus that was closer to home. And a lot of the times, it's not an equal amount of resources that are, in terms of information, that are handed out to these students that decide to transfer or switch over, to another Commonwealth campus. And I know that this year, Dan Murphy, who is absolutely fantastic, his office is trying to put together something as simple as a website with resources that detail, where your advisor is, a map of restaurants downtown, what are offices present, but these are University Park focused. I would like for efforts to be made to sort of ease that transition for students who choose to continue their Penn State journey at a place different to where they started. So that's that.
Excellent. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague from Penn State Harrisburg, Megan Bennett. Megan, what's your question?
Hi, Ninon.
Oh my God. Hi, Megan. This is surreal. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say hi and let you know that Penn State Harrisburg is very proud of everything that you've done for our campus. And just like Paul said, we are always here for you, even at Harrisburg campus, because you are a part of our history.
Megan, oh my God. Megan has been the face that I've associated with Penn State Harrisburg. Always a hug, always cookies, just the nicest person that I've had the privilege to work with when I was a little freshman. Megan, thank you so much. You just made my whole life, just putting it out there.
Oh, you're welcome. So what would you say is your favorite memory from Harrisburg?
Oh boy. Oh wow, this is a hard question, but I think my favorite memory from Harrisburg would have to be when we said goodbye to our chancellor. So Harrisburg did get a new chancellor 2 years ago, and 2 years ago, am I right? Yeah, 2 years ago. And that was also the year that I was moving. So we had this whole celebration in our auditorium, and we got faculty and students and staff together. And I think that was the first time that I experienced that sort of familial bond on campus, even though it happens multiple times, but I never got to see it in the flesh. And that's when I realized that, hey, these guys are a family. Like, it's not just great messaging that looks fantastic on a blue wall that says we are, but people really care about each other and they really care for each other. And I think it was the hardest decision of my life to leave Harrisburg after that day. And that was towards the very end. And I was like, I don't want to leave this. Everyone's here for Penn State, here for each other. What more could you ask for?
That's wonderful. Well, thank you for the question, Megan, and thanks for tuning in. And I want to thank everyone else for tuning in to today's coffee hour with Ninon Nelson. Ninon, you are an absolute star. We look forward to great things from you as you transition from being a student leader to being an alumni leader. Really grateful for all you've done for the university, for the glory, and for the future. We are
Penn State.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Paul. It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure.
All right.
I'm going to stop recording.